Good morning, everyone. So we're going to do a whistle-stop tour of building a testing culture, and I'm really glad that the caveat already came that I'm going to speak from my experience at Booking.com. Your experiences will definitely vary, so take a large pinch of salt. If you need some extra salt, there's some out there near the coffee. So this is me. This is a picture that my wife drew of me in an airport hotel on the last night of our trip to Japan. And if you take one thing from this talk, don't stay at an airport hotel, and if you do, take your own entertainment with you. That's my professional advice as an employee of an online travel agency. The second thing I will say is that it mentions here that I'm usually wrong, and you may infer from that I mean I'm usually wrong about A/B tests. What I would caveat that with is I only have evidence that I'm wrong about A/B tests, so I tend to extrapolate that to include everything else in the absence of evidence. So carry that caveat through the next 29 minutes or so. So Booking.com, we're based in Amsterdam. We have 13,000 staff, and we sell a bunch of hotel rooms all around the world. Some of you know us, may have booked with us, I hope. Probably Expedia as well in the room somewhere. We have 150 designers. I'm the director of design there. It's my job to make sure those people help the business and support the business's growth aims going forward. This is what the website looks like. This is the big website. We also have a little website, and we have an even littler website. They're basically just a yellow box with a search field and some other stuff, but it's really just about the yellow box. Aside from selling hotel rooms, the other thing that we'd like to think we're quite good at is A/B tests. We've been doing that for about 8 years now in earnest, which means we were kind of early to this game, and it means we've learned quite a lot along the way about how to do A/B testing. And without wanting to blow our own trumpet, I'll let someone else blow it for us. This is Evercore Equity Research, which suggests that Booking.com's utilization of A/B testing drives higher conversion than across its entire platform, resulting in conversion levels 2 to 3 times the industry average. Now, I don't know what the industry average is, but for the purpose of this presentation, I'm going to assume this is correct, since it lends some credibility to my opinions. So let's move on. Oh, and if you want to follow the link there, you can read the whole report. So what are the principles that guide A/B testing at Booking.com? And let's start in the tactical stuff, and we'll just run through these real quick. So number one, if it can be a test, we test it. So there aren't things that we don't test and things that we do test. We test absolutely everything. We test performance improvements. We test new product features. We test everything that you can imagine you can test. And if we can't test it, then we probably don't do it. That extends across our entire platform. So we spent 8 years testing on desktop. Mobile comes along and becomes really significant in our industry in particular, since part of our customer journey is inherently mobile. So that means for us, mobile testing in native applications, testing in mobile web and tablet web products also becomes really, really important. And my favorite one, and I apologize to the hippos in the room, is the highest paid person's opinion. We try not to let hippos guide our testing. So A/B testing, when it's done well, is really about the democratization of allowing your organization to impact its customer positively. And we have evidence that having a C in your title doesn't make you more successful in deciding what improves your product. So we have a slight allergy to this, and we hold that allergy very dear to our hearts. Teams are made for testing, and we'll go into kind of organizational structure in a little while. But what this means is that the design of a team, the design of a unit within the organization is really based around what does this team need in order to test this hypothesis or this group of hypotheses independently. So we don't want bottlenecks, we don't want dependencies on other teams or other parts of the business. Everyone in that team supports the testing of a hypothesis, and that's all they do. Really important as well is that everyone gets 100% access. So this is maybe a slightly difficult thing in some businesses and some industries, but what we try and do is make sure that everyone in the organization has access to as much data as we can legally give them access to. And the reason is that data is fuel for hypotheses. So the more informed you are across your entire organization, the more valuable your hypotheses are going to be and the more successful you're going to be in testing them. So you join Booking.com the first day you get to the building, you get the keys to the big data warehouse, and you can go and fiddle around and see what you can find. And that's really important for us. And talking of hypotheses, there's a difference between an idea and a hypothesis. An idea without a hypothesis, I like to think, is kind of a fart in the wind. And that's our second fart metaphor for today, for those keeping count. Ideas are cheap. Ideas are easy. Ideas come without any of the limitations of you having to decide, why is this good for this business? Why do I believe that it's good for this business? A hypothesis is grounded in the reality of your business and comes with an inherent requirement to prove or disprove it, which an idea doesn't have. People who come up with ideas are artists. People who come up with hypotheses are designers. That's what I like to say within booking. Next one. So again, I realize this is a somewhat controversial perspective, but within Booking.com, after 8 years of testing, what we've discovered is that it doesn't matter how big or small your test is, it's still overwhelmingly likely to fail. And that's just the realities of A/B testing. So what we try and do is we limit risk and we limit investment. So rather than testing an entire new product at once, we'll test small atomic experiments that allow us to make small investments in those tests and get returns and results that we can reliably trust. If you test 10 things at once and it works, you don't know which one of those things worked and which 9 didn't potentially. We have guidelines and not rules. So A/B testing is difficult. It requires a lot of knowledge. It requires a culture that supports A/B testing. And the temptation, I think, often is to take those things and to create really concrete rules about what you can and can't test, how you can and can't test it. We don't have those things, so teams have complete freedom to decide how and what they test. Sometimes it goes wrong and we course correct along the way, but it means that the creativity that you're able to generate in that testing process is not bound by limitations that were defined ignorant of the context in which the testing would be done. And we update those guidelines over time as we get more intelligent and more well-educated on A/B testing and as our platform and as our users develop. So as I said, we fail a lot. Now, you heard a figure earlier of 70% of tests have no impact or negative impact. For Booking.com, that number is a bit higher. That's likely a result of the fact that we've been doing this for a long time. So as time goes by, that low-hanging fruit tends to not be on the tree anymore, or maybe it's fallen off and started rotting. So it becomes increasingly difficult for us to find successful tests. And perhaps the biggest frustration is you don't know why it failed. And that's really the biggest frustration I think I experience as someone who's done thousands of A/B tests is I don't know whether it was a bad idea. I don't know if it was a bad implementation. I don't know if it was a combination of those things. In most cases, it's probably my poor design skills. But you don't know. You just don't know. And that's a real frustration and something that I think people often look at A/B testing as a panacea for understanding users, and it really isn't a panacea. It's better than not knowing anything, but it certainly isn't even close to knowing everything. So for that reason, you have to keep spending money on research. You shouldn't take your research budget and throw it all into building a new A/B testing framework, because you need the two things. So at Booking.com, user research in the traditional sense is maybe applied a bit differently to it is in a traditional company. User research for us becomes an input into hypothesis generation rather than the output of a product development process. So you take a hypothesis or you take a group of hypotheses into a user testing session and you build data and you build opinions around why this hypothesis holds weight or doesn't hold weight. You give that back to the product development team and they build off that hypothesis, which then gets tested in an experiment. That's quite different to this kind of QA approach to user testing that many companies use. And in the end, what happens is that your customers drive the product. So Booking.com doesn't look the way that it does because I decided it should look that way, and if I had done it, wouldn't look that way, I can promise you that. It looks that way because over 8 years, 15 years, customers have told us that this is the product that they want in small, measurable, incremental steps. So, whistle-stop tour. Let's talk about structuring A/B tests at scale. So we do thousands and thousands of A/B tests. We have over 1,000 experiments running concurrently at any time on our product, which means there are more versions of our website live than there are humans that have ever lived, by the way, which is pretty cool. Our QAs deserve way more money than we pay them. So here's how we test. As I said again, so traditionally, you may hear people talking about doing full-page experiments, test landing page A versus landing page B. We test dozens, hundreds, thousands of concurrent atomic experiments where changes occur independently. And because we have lots of traffic, we're able to create random groups of experiments that users get exposed to, which means that we don't have biases in our samples. That's an advantage of having millions of users. Here's the next one, and this is something that people also disagree about quite frequently. There's a temptation to limit the exposure of your experiment because you think it's high risk. And so what people often do is say, I'm going to test this against 5% of our users. All that means is you're going to wait 20 times longer to understand the result than if you tested it on 100% of your users. So the riskier the experiment for us, the more critical it is even that we expose it to all of our customers, because we're going to find out immediately if it's really bad, rather than letting it be really bad for a few people for a really long time. And as I said, we test everywhere, including on watches, believe it or not. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit there that's out of our control, sadly. What this means is that you have to make a really significant investment in making it as easy to A/B test in an environment you control very little, like mobile applications, as it is on the web. Release cycles, not being able to deploy hotfixes when you inevitably break something are some of the reasons that people avoid this. But once you've built a culture that expects and requires data to support decisions, you can't say, we're okay not knowing in our iOS and Android app, because that really doesn't match with the cultural context. And when you test everywhere, it's not about just testing on every platform, it's testing on every part of your product. So temptation is to test a landing page versus a landing page and declare that you've increased signups by 25%. What that doesn't address is all of these other parts of your product that you maintain because you think they contribute towards the success of your business. If they don't contribute towards the success of your business, get rid of them. And if they do, you should A/B test on them. And what I would say there also is you'd be surprised, or at least I was surprised, that a change you make on an index page can have a really significant impact on conversion rate that's 8, 9, 10, 12 pages deeper. We really see that in a very granular fashion. And the next one is tooling. So A/B testing, I think, is predicated on the idea that you have to be able to trust your tools. Now that means you either need to trust the tools that you have, or you need to get better tools, or you need to build your own tools. Now, 8 years ago, when Booking.com started doing A/B testing, there weren't really any tools that supported that on the market. So we built our own. And that went pretty well for 5 years or so, until we had a slight existential crisis when we thought we couldn't trust the tool anymore. And when you've built an entire organization around this idea of data, when that data gets undermined, it really becomes a critical problem in your organization. So we doubled down our investment, hired some really smart people, and now we have full trust in our tools again. I think that's critical if you want to do A/B testing at scale. Okay, so let's talk a bit about organization and how that works for Booking.com. We have 75 product teams working on our front end. That's our consumer-facing products. We have another whole bunch of teams working on internal-facing products and property-facing products as well, but let's focus on the consumer-facing side. And what that looks like is this matrix of teams. And here it looks all clean and independent. There's actually a lot of overlap here in different places. This represents the idealized version that we'd like to think we have organizationally. And what those teams look like is a matrix of multidisciplinary teams, which, as I said before, have everything they need within the makeup of the team in order to prove and disprove hypotheses. So in an average team here, you may have a product owner, a front-end and a back-end developer, a designer and a copywriter, or whatever makeup of skills is required for that team to prove or disprove hypotheses. And let's get to the important bit, designers, since those are the only people who really matter. They also exist across the organization. This is the only way you can get to an organization that has 150 designers. If you put all of those people in the corner on their own, they would do nothing, and I speak as a designer when I say that. Having this distributed group of people who have a very close tie to the product that they're trying to solve means that they gain context on the problem, they build a community around the problem that they're trying to address, and they have all of the advantages of working deeply on a specific product problem rather than this abstract notion of, I design Booking.com, which means you don't design anything. What's critical underlying that is this idea of a centralized support function. So we have this group of designers here that exist across the entire organization. What we do then have centrally is a way to support those people in developing their skills, in building community, in being the thing that links all of those designers across the organization into one cohesive team, if you will, without necessarily being a team. And it's important to say that that's the same for all of our technical roles, so for developers, for designers, for copywriters, for data scientists, etc. Another key fundamental thing about having an organization that supports and sustains A/B testing at scale is you need to be flexible. So that organizational structure looked very clean and very rigid. In reality, it moves as the product moves. So if tomorrow we prove a hypothesis that requires additional resource investment in order to grow the impact of that change, it means that that structure is also going to change in order to support that hypothesis. People move on average between every 9 and 12 months, go work on a new problem, see a new part of the organization, and take with them the learnings that they've had from their one team into their new team. So, what kind of skills do you need in an A/B testing organization? And I really think that we can refer to ourselves as an A/B testing organization. We may sell hotel rooms, but the way we do it is much more about A/B testing than it is about hotels. So here is the traditional set of things that you might want from a designer, in our case at least. Technical competency, not literacy, because I think I spelled competency wrong. Communication skills, cultural fit, strategy, empathy, taste, and passion. If you want to talk about how you measure taste, please find me this evening. It's a topic dear to my heart, and I'd love some help. What you've got on the other side is this list of things which are consistent, irrespective of role within Booking.com. When you distribute responsibility and you really hand people the keys to the castle, you need to be able to trust them, which means you need to trust that their instincts are correct when it comes to things like entrepreneurialism, adaptability, curiosity. They also should probably have some innate understanding of statistics or analysis or an ability to learn those things. I didn't ever think that as a designer I would understand things like confidence intervals, G-tests, P-tests, and all that stuff, but after 6 years I have built a cursory but still not insignificant understanding of those things, which stands me in good stead. The other thing you need in an organization like ours to survive is a passion and an acceptance of chaos. There's no documentation, and the documentation that we do have is out of date. You may go back to the office after a trip to Dublin and find that you now sit in another part of the building because a hypothesis has dictated that the people around you have to move somewhere else. That happens all the time, and that's fine. And after 6 years, I've realized that that's a positive thing. That's an indication that our business is successful and it's thriving and it's growing, and I can see that in A/B tests and I see it in the organization that's around me. So here's an interesting one, and we're going to talk about hippos again a little bit. And I have a series of questions to pose to you when it comes to taking this leap between doing A/B tests and being an A/B test-driven organization. So if you're the person who decides on this, then these are the series of questions that you should answer in the affirmative before jumping two-footed into this process. So are you okay being wrong? Because if you do this, you will be exposed as being wrong almost all of the time. That works really well in some organizations, but if you're a autocratic dictator in your company, then maybe you don't want to expose your frailties to everyone else. And you're going to be proven wrong. You're not just going to be wrong, everyone's going to know. There's going to be a public record of just how wrong you are. And trust me, everyone is going to be racking up percentages whilst you're not watching to see if they're less wrong than you are. You have to be okay with your ideas being tested like everyone else's. There's no executive path to experiments at Booking.com. You know, everyone has a right to say, I don't think that's going to work, and I require more evidence from you before I spend any time on it. That doesn't matter if you're the CEO or the new hire. Are you okay with changing your strategy based on A/B tests? So you may have this complex product roadmap that sets out a 5-year vision for your product, but that can be completely invalidated by the result of one A/B test. And you have to be okay with that idea that you have to relinquish control of not only today, but the future of your business potentially. Are you okay with unexpected and unintended results? You can do A/B tests and you may think, yeah, I know how this is going to go, and feel like you can still kind of drive the car without anyone watching. That's not going to work. And are you willing to invest in experimentation? It doesn't come for free. You're going to have to start hiring people who have a slightly different skill set. You're going to have to invest in tooling, which you probably haven't invested in. And you're going to have to invest a bunch of time in stuff that's going to live on your product for a couple of weeks at most, and then it's going to get thrown away, which to some people feels like a complete waste of time. In essence, what you need to do is embrace this idea of decentralized power, where you, as the executive, are not deciding what gets done, but are helping create an environment in which things can get done, not necessarily the things you want. And that's trust. It's trust across the whole spectrum. All the way down, it's trust. So if you're going to do this, step one, and this is the best part, throw out your roadmap. Means you can stop maintaining your roadmap. No one was reading it anyway. No one cares. They already all think you're wrong, so throw it out. It's one less Google Doc for you to maintain. I still see people building these things as well internally, and I always think, oh, I remember when I was as optimistic as you are. Simpler times. I indulge it because I think everyone needs to learn that lesson for themselves, and I'm kind of cheated by telling you guys, I suppose. Second thing is you need to trust your people. You need to trust that not only are they technically competent, but they're competent in understanding what's good and bad for your business, and that means you have to invest in training. It means, as I said, you have to hire the right kind of skills that support that kind of work within your organization. If you don't trust your people, you shouldn't do A/B testing because you're not going to like what happens as a result. I trust that the designers within Booking.com are not going to, and I haven't looked at the website for an hour, so it may have happened, that they're going to change the header to be pink. There's no reason they couldn't do it, but we try and hire people who we think intellectually about the business impact of experimentation and don't spend time on frivolous shit like changing colors. Trust your tools. As I said before, if you don't have these tools already, invest in them. And invest in them to the point at which you feel like your organization trusts them. And if they don't trust them, you have to make them trust them, either by making it really clear to people how this thing works and why it's reliable, or get new tools. Or maybe get new people. It's also an option. And trust the science. Like, this stuff isn't particularly complicated. You know, it's not new. We're applying very old mathematical formulas to a product. It's not that hard, even as someone who's far more comfortable choosing colors and fonts. I get it. So you guys certainly can. And I think the most crucial thing is you have to go where the tests take you. And that can be uncomfortable, and it can be unsettling, and it can mean that the company that you work for 2 years from now isn't the company that you were working for 2 years ago. But it means that you're doing something which is driving in a direction that your customers are telling you is adding value to their lives. In our case, it means that people are enjoying their vacations more. It means they're not staying in as many airport hotels, all those kind of joyous events that happen. So embrace the chaos, go where the tests take you, and that's all from me. Thank you.
Amazing, thank you, Stuart. Question, no doubt questions, is good. There's a hand up already, it's like an auction, there we go.
Can I throw it?
Yeah, I'm gonna give you, there you go. It was quite near at the front. Oh, we could go to the back, look at that. There's a few options.
I'm going to throw it up there just because I'm ambitious. It was close.
Hey, I have one question about how many full-time developers are you having in Booking.com only to prepare the variation for the A/B testing?
So if across the organization we have about 130, 40 product teams, that means that we have a couple of hundred developers, both front end and back end, so let's call it 400 working on those teams specifically. You then have to count all the people that make all of that stuff work underneath it. So the team maintaining the experiment tool, there's another pretty significant group of people working on the infrastructure there. That's one of the advantages of having a conversion rate that's probably 2 to 3 times higher than your competitors, is that the return on investment means that you have this flywheel effect where I convert that traffic more, which means I can invest more in that business. So that could mean I'd spend more money on Google advertising. It could mean I spend more money on increasing headcount. But what it does mean is that you build a competitive moat, which then means you can say, I now have 400 people who are doing this thing. How is it that they're all busy? Which still perplexes me, I must say.
Thank you.
We go. I got a question from the list. And by the way, you have total permission to politely decline to answer any question. I don't know whether this contradicts any confidentiality, but is Booking testing using bandit or evolutionary algorithms rather than just A/B method?
So I think I'm okay in saying, because I think there's a paper that's published. If you search for Booking.com multi-arm bandits online, a group of our data scientists published a paper a couple of years ago about multi-arm bandits, specifically to do with the choice of hotel photography that we use on the website. So we do it. Clearly, that's a very specialized skill set. It doesn't represent the majority of our A/B testing, but we do have a really big team of data scientists who are always looking at new approaches to A/B testing as well.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. There's a few more hands that went up in the audience as well. Would you like the mic back so you can have another go at throwing? So we can get it back down here. Look at that. Awesome. There we go. An easy one. There we go.
So the question with thousands of A/B tests for me is, how do you handle the knowledge? How do you handle the knowledge base to spread the learnings, but also the failures?
Yep. So it's not only the number, it's our complete uselessness when it comes to documentation. So those two things combined make it really hard to build a knowledge repository. What we do have is a culture which encourages sharing and collaboration. But what we also know is that over time, the reliability of historical A/B tests goes down pretty significantly. So the stuff we learned 2 years ago, we're probably better off disregarding those results now and retesting those assumptions and hypotheses, because everything else apart from the A/B test has changed, the product, the macro environment, etc. So there's a lifetime to that knowledge. Within that, the culture of collaboration sustains it, and outside of that, we're fine with throwing it away.
Oh, no, it's gone. Speak into it.
So you just develop the highest priority stuff with the biggest impacts first and delay the other stuff, right?
Yeah, and also we hire a lot of new people, and when those people arrive, they come with a bunch of ideas that we may have tested a long time ago, or we may not have tested, but because we see a success rate of retesting which is quite different to the success rate of testing, we don't want to discourage that kind of retesting. So not having this kind of Bible of knowledge means that people are free to retest old assumptions. We have a lot of people, and the scale of impact that experiments have at Booking.com is quite small these days, but it's on a huge base. So we don't really look at things like effect size. We look at audience size really as a bigger indicator of impact.
Lovely. How do you know if the sum of all the small parts is what a customer wants?
Oh, Jesus. So that's a bit where qualitative research helps, right? Is you go out and talk to people, you ask people explicitly their opinions about the quality of your product. So we do a bunch of A/B testing, but we do a bunch of things which allow us to actually get opinions from customers in ways that require us to read them. We do things like site satisfaction surveys. We also see in our product, it's very interesting, the quality of the experience on Booking.com also can have an influence on the review score of a hotel. So if you consider a user's review of the hotel as being a proxy for the quality of the match between Booking.com and that customer, then it means you can use a bunch of other qualitative signals to decide, is my product getting better or worse? The audience changes over time as well, though. We have a bunch of new people using the website all the time, so we keep having to retest those things as well, which is why we do a lot of really traditional user research.
Again, I'm going to stop there. If you've got any more questions, Stuart's going to be having coffee outside, so it's a perfect time to ask. But I'm sure I speak for everyone when I say thank you for your openness in sharing with us.
Thank you.